Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for being here with me again on Sunday. We are going to continue these monthly webinars just to keep everybody on track with what's going on. As you've, I'm sure, noticed in the news, things are changing and they're continuing to change. So my objective in doing these webinars is to keep you all up to date on what I'm learning and the resources that I have that I'm checking all the time and sharing those with you so that you can also get the best information. For those of you who don't know me that might be new to the webinar, I'm Felicia Fahey. I'm the founder and CEO of Fahey Associates, and we've been delivering college advising and monitoring the college admissions process for 14 years. I hope the sound is okay. I'm not seeing any complaints in the chat room, so hopefully we're good to go. We have launched a poll. If you're interested in taking it, we'd love to hear how your student did this semester and the challenges that that came up during the second half of the semester. I will be presenting for the first half of the presentation. My presentation answers all of the questions that were sent to me as part of the RSVP form. So I will be opening up the floor for questions at the end. If you feel that I didn't answer your question in full, or if you have a new question, we'll spend quite a bit of time there just making sure that everybody's questions are answered and you know, we've addressed everything that needs to be addressed at this point. So we will be participating by chat. We are recording this webinar, so if you want to watch it again, or if a family member wants to watch it, it'll be available on our YouTube channel. So today, the theme of the webinar is everything is in flux. So as you've noticed, things are changing. They are not changing consistently across the board. So that's one of the things that we'll be talking about is how to get the best information, given that not every single school is going test optional or getting rid of subject exams or returning to teach in the fall. So there's a lot of fluctuation. It's a lot to cover. And I'll be giving you some resources so that you can stay on top of what's going on, and also some steps to take so that you have the best information that you need, given your students' interest in particular colleges and plans for the upcoming year or 2 years. So we'll be going over the greatest number of questions I had were around the exams. So we will be taking a look at that first. That's kind of the top priority. Then we'll be talking about college preparation beyond the exam, so what you can be doing. Planning for the fall. Many high schools are back in session, most of them are, and they are planning to bring students on campus a couple days a week. So I will be addressing some of my concerns around what kinds of issues might come up in the fall and how you can prepare for those. And then finally, we'll look at how colleges are preparing to go back in the fall. So what kind of teaching methodologies, how will they test? As you can imagine, they are having to innovate and come up with brand new strategies for having an in-person campus, or what's considered now a hybrid model, which includes both in-person learning and in-person learning and online learning. So as you may have seen in the news, the big news of last week was that the UCs are dropping their SAT and ACT requirements in 2025. So we're going to take a quick look at that. I will be sharing my screen with you. My main message to you all today, this will be my message throughout the webinar, it continues to be my message to you all, is that stay on track with what you can control. Anything that's out of your control, you can't really worry too much about, and admissions officers are aware that things are not in your control and that you're doing your best. The other important message is that you continue to explore your interests and prepare for college to the extent that you can. So incorporating a bit of routine around exploring your interests and preparing for college each week is a great way to prepare or go through your summer, and we'll be taking a look at that as we go along. So the first step here is to take a look at the UC announcement. I will be providing a follow-up email with all of the links that we're looking at today. It'll go out in about 2 days just to make sure that we're getting the most current information to you, but I am providing a list of these different links. So there's no need, you can certainly take note of them, but do know that you'll be getting your own personal list in the email. So the first thing that we're looking at is this announcement from the University of California. Give me just a second to pull up the share screen. We are looking at this document here about the UCs. Let me just put this to the side for a minute. Here we go. If you look at what the UCs say, you basically want to scroll down to this section and it gives you the entire outline of what the UCs are doing. Basically, they have gone, and we knew this even earlier, that they're going test optional for years 21 and 22. That means that you can provide the scores and they will consider them, but it's an option to provide them. So you don't have to provide them if you don't want to. For 23, 24, they're actually going test blind, which means that they will not consider the test scores. Now, what I want you to pay careful attention to is this second statement that I'm highlighting here about test blindness. And what they're saying is that they will be considering your scores for scholarships, for placements in the fall, and for statewide eligibility. So if you want to give yourself a chance of getting scholarships, or you want to place into a higher math lane, for example, when you start college, then you want to still consider providing your SAT and ACT scores to the UCs. So you want to read over this document carefully. The UCs are starting to develop their own standardized tests, so they will not be test-free completely. They are developing their own test, and they're hoping to implement that by 2025. So that's what's going on with the UCs. Let's see, coming back to other schools. So most of you will not only be applying to the UCs. There may be some students out there that are applying to the CSUs and the UCs, but many of you are planning to apply to private college outside of the state and also out of state schools. So what you want to be doing is paying attention to whether those schools are requiring tests. Have they gone test optional, or are they not test optional? The majority of schools have gone test optional. The top schools have not. So we're still seeing kind of a variety of responses. Cornell has gone test optional, Harvard has not, in terms of the very top schools. Case Western is a school that is saying that they will consider and take into consideration the exam, so they're still recommending them, but they're not requiring them. So every school has a slightly different approach to this. There are basically 3 different approaches. One place you can go to see more or less, so not all of the information is there, but if you go to the NACAC website, and I'm going to share my screen with you again so that you can see this. This is the National Association for College Admission Counselors. It's a very huge organization that is basically, its members are both high school counselors and independent educational consultants. So it's a huge organization that's really meant to speak to everybody that's involved in the college application process. And we're going to take a look now at what they're saying here. So we've got NACAC. Let's see, I hope that, let's see, I need to share it. There we go. NACAC basically has put together and asked colleges to let them know how they're handling requirements. So if you go to their website, you can click in here the name of a school. So we'll put in Case Western. And then if you click on, you'll scroll down below, you'll see how they are handling testing. And they are saying that the SAT, ACT will not be required, but will be considered in the admissions decisions if submitted. So each college has a different response in here. There are things like, are colleges open for visits? How will they be handling transcripts? There are a whole bunch of different international students. Plans for 2020 for those of you that are actually have accepted admission to a school and are planning to go. So this is the most comprehensive list I'm seeing out there in terms of all of the different requirements. Again, you'll find for some schools it might be a little bit spotty. Harvard, for example, they include their information, but they're not really clear about what their exam requirements are. So you would need to go to their website. We're going to take a look at that there. So it's always good to double check with the admissions website just to make sure that the information is absolutely accurate, but NACCAC will give you sort of the broad strokes. But if we go to Harvard, where they're not clear about their statement on NACCAC, here they state in clear terms that they are still requiring the SAT and the ACT, that if you really have a hard time or you're unable to take an exam, that they understand and that they will review your application in light of those circumstances. And that's pretty much the tone of most admissions offices. They're saying, if you have a reason that you can't do something, then let us know and we won't require it of you. So that's sort of the general tone. But again, every school is handling things a little bit differently. Harvard, Cornell, Brown, and Dartmouth have all stated that they are not requiring subject exams. It's mostly the very top schools that require subject exams. Engineering programs often include subject exams, so it's in your it's to your advantage to take your subject exams if you can. You've been preparing them, so go ahead and try to sign up for them again in the fall. But know that most of these schools are saying, as Harvard does, that you will not be disadvantaged in any way if you do not submit those scores. It's unclear what engineering departments are saying, but they tend to want to see a math or a physics or chemistry, depending on the area of engineering that you're going into. They generally want to see subject exams. So as you can see, the best thing for you to do is check both with NACCAC, go to the individual college websites. If you're looking for a really comprehensive list of test optional schools, and this includes both schools that are going test optional for 2021, but it also includes schools that are permanently test optional, like Bates College or University of Chicago, then Fair Test is the best website to visit. They have a long list of colleges that have pre-COVID been test optional. And here you can see schools like American University and Amherst. Basically, there are a ton of small liberal arts colleges and larger colleges that Barnard College, Bard College. So you can go through this list and see what colleges are test optional. So that kind of gives you an overview of all of this, the sort of ways to go about figuring out if your colleges are still requiring the tests or not. Mostly what we're seeing is that colleges are slowly but surely moving toward a test optional policy, in part because it's getting so messy to either get an exam. Exam centers, they still have to come up with a protocol for running exams. Along those lines, the other thing that I want to emphasize is that if you are planning to take an exam, but you have allergies or you are in some way have compromised health conditions that will put you at risk to go take this exam in an environment where, hopefully they're going to be taking every health precaution. But if for some reason you're concerned about your health or the health of your family because somebody in your family is at greater risk, that's another good reason to take this decision very seriously and figure out what's best for you and what's best for your family. So the SAT and ACT are really scrambling. There are a lot of disgruntled, both high school counselors and college admission counselors that are really calling upon these companies to take greater responsibility and work hand in hand with colleges to create more testing centers. It's a work in progress. And so we'll just be seeing you. If you had signed up for a June exam for the SAT or the ACT, and the exam was canceled last week, you were given the opportunity to sign up for a new exam. or your subject exams. If your subject exams have been scheduled for June and you had to, and they were canceled, you were allowed to come in and sign up for them again in the fall. On June 3rd, they will be opening up the SAT, the College Board will be opening up their registration for more centers, and we just don't know how that's going to go. So I have been seeing that, different people have been saying that they can't register for certain centers. So that brings me to my next point. For 2021 students, you're in a bit of a conundrum. You do have to decide whether you're going to be taking these exams, whether it's worth the risk. If you took an exam already, but you're not happy with the result, then you need to decide whether you want to retake it. For everybody else, students of 2022, 2023, 2024, this really isn't the time to take the exam. If you've been preparing for it and you're really set on taking it, then by all means go ahead and take it. But really, there's going to be a lot of stress around these exams, both signing up for them, making sure that the test center is within reach, that it's going to stay open, that they're going to be following health protocols. The thing that most affects students when they're taking these exams is stress. It's part of the reason that they don't do so well. So going into a more stressful exam isn't the best strategy, in my opinion. I think it would be better to plan to take an exam in the spring, in the next summer. So if you're able to put it off, this is definitely the time to put it off, because this is going to be a more stressful fall for taking the SATs. Let's see where we are. So in summary, know the college requirements by visiting the admissions page of each college. Do what you can. Admissions will be reasonable. And don't worry if you can't get a sitting date, or if you really feel that for health reasons this isn't the right decision for you or your family. You need to explain it in your application. This brings me to the next point, which is to talk about what you can be doing beyond the exams. I know that students are also concerned, and families, about grades. How do you stay competitive? How do you show your excellence if you don't have grades for this semester? One thing that students are doing is they're taking courses in their areas of interest. So that might be languages, it might be computer science, it might be pre-medicine or engineering. So taking classes in areas of interest to you, or in 8 areas of interest that are aligned with your major, is a great way to do that. Or if you feel that you didn't really follow out the curriculum that you needed in a math course or a science course, or you felt that you didn't get to do as much writing as you would have liked to for an English course, these are all great reasons to take a course at the community college or an online course. It's not required. There are many things that you can be doing with your time right now, and we'll be talking about that in just a moment. But really, if you're looking for ways to excel and stay competitive in terms of your grades, then courses are a way to do that. Of course, exams are another way to do that. If you want to be showing quantifiable measures of your abilities. Otherwise, in terms of staying active, in terms of your extracurriculars, in terms of making the best use of your time, this is a great time to learn something new or explore majors. It's a great time to expand. One of the things that college admissions is looking for is that you have a strong sense of self, that you know what you're interested in, that you can talk about the things that you're interested in. Maybe you don't know what you're interested in, so this is a great time to figure that out by exploring majors online. You can go to YouTube and explore majors. There are students out there that talk about their majors. There are professors that talk about their field. YouTube is a tremendous resource at this time for just learning and learning more about what it is that you might want to do one day, about careers. The other thing, we are in a moment of tremendous social injustice and tension. People are in need. There's need for money to be able to carry out causes. Think about a fundraiser that you can do, whether it's doing it, we used to go out and do marathons or do bake-a-thons or do volunteer work. Find ways that you can fundraise on your own at home, and start donating $25 a month to a cause of your choice. People are definitely in the need. and organizations that are trying to help and meet people. That's a great way to keep up your volunteer work. So thinking of things like that that you can do, learning about businesses that might need help locally, going to your local city page and seeing what kind of volunteer work is in need at this time. Cities are actually helping to organize volunteer service. So that's another way to get involved. Being creative. This is a great time to pick up an instrument. If you never were able to, learn how to DJ, learn how to cook better, help your parents in some way with home development. So again, they're great ways to hunker down into community, to expand who you are, get clearer about what you want for your life. And most importantly, this is a great time to search colleges and get to know the colleges that are on your list. And I can't emphasize this enough. Admissions officers are working day and night to find ways to reach you. They are used to able to go around and travel, to see you at their college fairs, to host you at their home campuses, and they really want to reach you. So this is a great time to be getting online, going to colleges, seeing what kinds of online events they're having. I'm going to share my screen with you again, because there was a online college fair these last 2 days, and they have posted all of their proceedings. So let's take a look at that. Let's see, I'm making sure that I'm sharing. So here it is. Cialfo Online University Fair, and they had hundreds of people presenting from all over the world, colleges presenting on Friday and Saturday. And lucky for you, we're just going to scroll down so you can go through and sort of see, they have the recordings and the video tour for every single school that was at this conference. So I listened to schools in Europe. I listened to Swarthmore. There were schools that I've just never been able to listen to the admissions folks before, and it was really great. They were very different, one talk from the other. Their sort of approach to the talks were very different. Some of them are looking at why does a liberal arts education matter, or how to go about writing your college admissions essay. Others are talking about just their universities and what they like about them and what they offer. So you have here at your fingertips a whole bunch of recordings of this conference that just took place. They also provide you with the name of the person who gave the talk, so you can reach out to that person. You can also go to the college and just find out who's the rep for your particular school or your area and start a conversation. So again, if you want a competitive edge, if that's what you're really after, this is a great way to do this. I'm going to stay here in the share screen mode because I'm going to be sharing another website with you. But just to wrap that up, it's something that everybody needs to be doing. You really need to understand why you want to go to a particular college. We've talked about Unigo and Niche. There's also Princeton Review. These are 3 websites that provide you with student reviews of colleges. But understanding what admissions officers like about their colleges, they're the ones that are going to be reading your application. So understanding how they see their colleges, what they think is important, is a great way to get a competitive edge in your application. So moving on, another new development in terms of the college application and how you can present what you're doing in your extracurriculars, or the limitations that came up as a result of COVID. The Common App has launched a new section on the application. I'll be sharing this link with you as well. You can watch this video about what they're doing, but they've basically created a box on the Common Application where you can talk about what you've done during COVID, how your activities were interrupted, if anything prevented you from taking an exam. So this box, you can be rest assured, will be taken very seriously by admissions. It's where you need to provide information about how this period went for you, how you were, the obstacles that you came into confrontation with that kept you from doing things, and how you went about around those obstacles and made light of the situation. So the next thing that we're going to be talking about now is preparing yourself for the fall. As we know, most high schools will not be going back to a full session. They're going to be going into generally a couple. They're trying to get students into large rooms so that they can spread out and social distance. They're trying to put protocol in place to make sure that students are keeping their hands clean and wearing masks. There is going to be an inordinate amount of energy putting into making sure that high school is run properly and that social distancing occurs. So I want you to think about that very carefully. I think that we're going to see, in terms of the curricular coverage that we saw this semester, which in my understanding of talking to most students and seeing in my own family was not full. So students were not taking, they were taking AP exams, but they weren't necessarily taking other regular exams during the year or completing papers. So a lot of learning that was supposed to be happening did not happen. It is most definitely, there's a high probability that this will continue for the fall. So what I want you to be planning for is the possibility that you need to know what you're not covering and investigate that. Find out, as I've mentioned before, you can use Khan Academy to get a sense of what does the course cover. So what do we cover in biology? What do we cover in calculus? What do we cover in English? And make sure that you have a sense that you've been covering all of that material and supplement where you need to. If you think that means taking a college in the most important courses to you, a community college course, then take one, or go about the learning on your own and just make sure that you've covered all of the areas in the math book, or that you've read the materials for an English class. You know, there are all kinds of ways that you can make sure that you're up to task and that you've covered everything. But I'm asking you to consider doing some self-directed independent learning there, and just to make sure that you're covering, because we don't want students to be falling completely behind. We will be launching a Club Ariadne in the fall, which is meant to provide teaching and support to students to help them keep on track of their routines. This will be a weekly club where students will come together and manage their weeks and what they're doing and what they need to do, their extracurriculars, the things that they want to achieve that semester, and also just getting emotional support and tips for staying on track and kind of managing their work and managing their week in the absence of their regular normal structure. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. We will be broadcasting about that later. I'm also running a camp application, and our capstone project is still running through the summer. So if you're looking for ways to enrich your summer, or if you just like to understand the college application process better, camp application is a great way to do that. And the capstone project is a great way to get structure around a project that you'd like to do. So the next thing that we're looking at is how colleges are preparing for the fall. This is our last point. And I am going to show you just a quick image. Let's see, it looks like I have, let me go into share screen again. We're going to look at this image that I've created out of some results that I found. So these are the top kind of 100 colleges that most of my students apply to. And this is basically showing you in just a very sweeping manner how different colleges are planning to, whether they're going to be on campus or not. So I'm just going to kind of talk you through the color graph. The CSUs have decided that they're going online. So California State Universities will be online for the fall. All of the colleges that you see here in green, and these include Oregon, Notre Dame, Boston University, UT Austin, most small liberal arts colleges, the majority of them are planning to have in-person instruction next year. All of the ones that you see in yellow are planning, they're still figuring it out. So they're still considering how they're going to, whether they're going to have in-person instruction or not. In this category, we have University of Vermont, Vassar, Wellesley, University of Chicago, Stanford, Tufts, Tulane, UC Santa Barbara, UC Santa Cruz, Pomona, Reed, Harvard, Grinnell, George Washington, Duke. So those schools are some of the many schools that are not sure yet. They're considering their options. And then at the very bottom, we have schools that are going to do a mix of online and in-person learning. those are schools that are embracing a hybrid plan, and they include Carnegie Mellon, Rice, Berkeley, Davis, UCLA, UCSD, USD, or UC Davis, Boulder, and UW. So as you can see, the UCs are not all on the same page. They each are doing their own policy and trying to figure out how they will reconvene for the fall. So the other thing that I've been tracking is how colleges are planning to teach in the fall. So there are a large range of scenarios and different ways that schools are sort of bolstering themselves for the fall. In this poll, colleges were allowed to pick more than one modality in terms of how they're planning to teach in the fall. Many are saying that they're going to combine, and this may be on a class-by-class basis. So this doesn't mean that every class will be taught the same. Some of them are teaching face-to-face, others are teaching completely online. So some courses might be online and others might be face-to-face if for colleges that are going back to campus. Some are going to offer face-to-face and then transition to online. Others are going to offer online and then transition into face-to-face. So basically, it's still a work in progress. In terms of bolstering support students, 78% of colleges said that they would be increasing advising during the fall. 68 said that they would be bolstering their health and mental health and wellness services, and 43 said that they would be improving communications, increasing communications from faculty. So again, there are a bunch of different ways in which colleges are working to figure out how they're going to continue their services in the fall and how they're going to improve them. In terms of assessments, we're seeing some innovation here. There will be exams taken with monitoring. 72% of colleges said that they would be doing project-based assessments. So there might be a shift away from exams and towards assessments because monitoring exams can be difficult. There will be skills and competency-based assessments as well. And then exam-based with active restriction of software. So again, the whole issue of being able to take an exam online is in progress in terms of the innovation around that, and colleges are working like crazy through the summer to figure out how to assess students. Okay, so that is pretty much my presentation. Oh, let's see. Okay, let's see. There was some trouble seeing. Yes, we will be sharing all of these links and websites. It sounds like the graph that I was sharing. Let me just see which graph. Maybe somebody can let me know which graph didn't come through. I'm going to just share this one quickly. Oh, that's why it was the wrong one. Here we go. So let me just go through that really quickly again. This is a graph about the percentage of colleges, how they're planning to teach courses. So how will instruction take place? So even if you're on campus, some of your courses might still be online. Some of them might be face-to-face. And they're just sort of a wide variety, with some colleges doing a face-to-face transition online and others doing an online course that transitions to face-to-face. And then again, different ways in which services are being bolstered. And the top three are through advising, health and wellness services, and increasing communications from faculty. And then finally, the mode of testing students is changing, and they will be doing some kind of exam with monitoring, an increase in project-based assessment, and skills competencies. Okay, so that is where we are. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them here. Please feel free to put them in the chat box, any questions that you have, and I'll answer them. Maybe I've answered everybody's questions, which would be amazing. Okay, let's see. And yes, just to repeat, you will be getting a follow-up email in the next couple of days with all of the links that I've referred to today, so that you can kind of do some research on your own and read more carefully statistics and evaluations that I was reviewing. Let's see here. Oh, I see. Some people are in the Q of A. Okay, so I need to, let's see, open that up. So gap year, that's a really good question. So should you elect to take a gap year? I think in general, this is my opinion. It's an opinion that I'm seeing a sort of more nationally as I'm following different boards where people are posting sort of discussions and responses to this question. The gap year is really great when students can go out into the world and do something. This isn't exactly the time to be doing that. So it really isn't the most ideal time to take time off if you're going to be home and having to come up with a structure. So I think that if for financial reasons, this isn't the right time, a family member has lost a job, or both family members have lost a job, then I think that transitioning to a community college for a year or finding a way to do something at home is a great idea. If you're still able to afford going to college, I would recommend that you stick with it. I think that the problem with doing a gap year right now is that students will lose momentum potentially unless they're really set on not going back and they have a project that they can do at home and they are structured and disciplined and they can stay on top of it. But a gap year should never be a gap year off. It should always be a year on. That's always been the sort of mood and tenor of a gap year, is that it's a year to go out and explore and expand who you are. If you can pull that off at home without any structure, then that's great. And there are many ways to get creative. If the gap year will turn out to be just a year of being at home and not really doing anything, that can have really negative consequences for the student in terms of sort of a winding down, feeling a lack of motivation, and then having to wind up the next year kind of out of sync with other students. So that's sort of my opinion on the gap year. Another question, thank you, Eric. So do you have any theories on how admissions will be affected next year? Will schools of a certain profile see applications increase or drop? And how would that affect where students might apply? That's a really good question. I think that from what I can tell right now, it's really a socioeconomic question. So I think that for students that can no longer afford to apply to, and this is what we're seeing across in national polls, is that students that can no longer afford to go out of state to a school or go to a private school are probably going to stay at home and go to state schools or go to community colleges. I think more broadly, if families are still in a strong socioeconomic position, then we can see that they are still going to be applying to school. So there may be a slight dip in applications. Certainly international students will not be applying. So I think that we can expect to see a dip in the number of applications, but I don't know how significant that dip will be. It's really hard to say. So that might mean that the following year is less competitive. It might mean nothing. I mean, it just really depends on who's applying and who's in that applicant pool. It might mean that admissions is just as competitive as always, but it might mean that maybe it's less competitive. We had years like 2016 when students, it seemed like there were fewer students applying, and then upsurges in 2018 where a bunch of students were applying. There was a real uptick in the number of applications that colleges were receiving. And as a result, it was harder for students to get into their top choice schools. So I think that answers your question, Eric. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does. So let's see, Kathy, do you anticipate college tuition to go down due to online? That's a really good question. And there's been some debate about what are the costs of online learning to the college. So if you're a professor, you're still showing up, you're still having office hours. I know that many colleges are going to be cutting faculty salaries. They're making cuts across the board. Even schools like Stanford are cutting programs. I don't know to the extent that they're cutting salaries, but there is going to be a significant budget cuts made over the next few years at colleges and universities. So I think that some colleges will move, if they can afford it, to have less expensive online tuition. Obviously, you shouldn't be asked to pay for room and board, and that's certainly going to be on a, from what I can tell so far, it's going to be on a college to college basis. Let's see here. Wendell, given the economic challenges posed by coronavirus, what do you think will happen regarding the availability of financial aid relative to what has been available? So that is a really good question. It's kind of hard to say. Colleges have been receiving loans so that they can continue to provide loans to students, but again, there are cuts being made, and I'm assuming that they will be across the board. Programs are being planned, even at places like Stanford, where colleges have strong endowments, there will be budget cuts over the next few years. You can expect that the state schools and, certainly in California, the state schools are going to be hit pretty hard with budget cuts. So I think that we can expect that financial aid offerings will go down unless the schools are receiving some kind of governmental support to increase that financial aid. But my sense would be that probably merit scholarships and financial aid will be hit as well. So any place where money is concerned, there's going to be an increased need to reduce expenses, unfortunately. So let's see, Lisa, any news or list of colleges that are great already with online learning and then kids can transition to that school without a learning gap? How will learning online at a current college affect this incoming fall or future years? How do colleges handle online learning? Okay, great questions, Lisa. At this point, I think that probably after the semester, we'll be seeing a lot of evaluations of how colleges have done. Then there have been, colleges are reporting how they're doing, whether that their transition has been really smooth. It's really hard to know the extent to which that's true, or whether they're sort of marketing their school that way. So I think that over the summer, we'll be seeing a lot of polls and studies because courses are just starting to wind down. And that'll be the time. I'll definitely be keeping my eye on that, and we'll be reporting back. Let's see, in terms of transitioning to a school, let's see, I want to make sure that I'm understanding your question properly here. I think the one way that online learning might be affecting, obviously the thing that we're looking at is how many students are actually enrolling, how many aren't. Are colleges going to start offering online learning on an ongoing basis in the future? Does that mean that they'll be able to increase their enrollments? I mean, I think a lot of these questions are up in the air and I don't really have answers for them at this point. So I think that is about as well as I can answer those questions at this time. Let's see. Is there still a way, Kathy, to provide a student's transcript with grades to colleges, even if the grading for this year was pass-fail? I imagine that there will be an opportunity to upload documents. So if you had a midterm, some colleges might allow you to upload your quarter grades. So if you had your third quarter grades available, that you can provide those. Often you can provide a link to your Google Drive if there are any documents that you feel that you need to share. I'm expecting that there will be an increase in terms of being able to provide documents of proof in this whole process. So basically that's one way that you can do that. And then of course, if you have college courses at the community college level or an online course, you can provide those transcripts as well. So you can send them, you can always send things to admissions directly. They generally do prefer that you upload things to the additional statement section, or they'll provide an area on the application where you can upload any documents that you think are relevant. And I'm hoping that they will have that available in the applications this year. So let's see, I think I've answered all of these questions. Is any other questions? I'll check the chat room as well, just to see if anybody put any questions in there. Let's see. A question from, okay, Douglas is interested in the application boot camp. Basically, what we do in this camp is help students prepare their application, their Common App, make sure that they understand how to do their activities list and a resume. We walk them through all of the pitfalls of the application process and help them to build a strategy. We do a writing workshop, review all of their materials, help them, give them an individualized strategy for their college list and their just an overall strategy about how to apply, and then help them with an essay strategy and get them started either on their Common App or a couple of the UC essays. So that's the camp application, and I will be sending you all a link to that as well. Michelle is asking, for STEM students, how do colleges weigh college credit courses versus online professional independent learning courses? That's a really good question. I think it depends on the online school. So I know that Johns Hopkins is very reputable. There are some programs that are more reputable than others. However, I think that, you know, things are changing. That's been the rule of the past. Certainly community college courses will be well regarded because they sort of understand what the level is there. If it's an AP course that's been taken online and the AP exam has been taken, then that's clearly a resource or a quantified measure that colleges, admissions can really trust. So those are, you know, it's sort of, it's hard to say. Some colleges might prefer one online learning environment over another, but there are certainly, those are the ones that I know of for her. I know that Johns Hopkins is very safe, for example, in terms of online learning and their kind of accreditation and the courses they give. High schools often give include the credit from those courses on their high school. So if you're taking courses that will be given credit by your high school, then you know, they will be given a grade, then that sort of shows the legitimacy of the online program. So that's one way to measure it, is do they have an agreement with high schools that their courses can be counted. But again, colleges are being gracious and they're looking at things differently this year. So this is sort of, I'm letting you know sort of what's happened in the past, and we don't exactly know. And probably there are no generalities that can be made for every admissions office. So one thing that you can do is call admissions office or send them an email. Admissions officers in general are very open to your questions and will give you the answer in a very straightforward manner. So the best thing to do is to call those schools that you're most concerned about and ask them that question and see if there are any online courses that they prefer, that they think are more legitimate, see what they say. Any news, another question from Lisa, any news or list of colleges that are great? Let's see, I think I already answered that question. And I think that's it. I'm just checking the Q&A. Okay, anonymous, another question. A lot of families are taking leave of absence if the college will be going online with the same tuition. How will that affect a small private school? So great question. Private schools are taking different approaches here. Some of them are saying, if we've admitted you, then we really care about you and we understand that we will consider you one of our students no matter what you do. Other colleges are saying, you've chosen us and we really expect you to commit. So it's really, that response to that question is really on a college by college basis. So one thing that you can do is call an admissions office, again, sort of anonymously, and ask them that question. But yeah, it is a big question. So if they do not offer online, a different online tuition, then that, you know, room and board costs at least $15,000 a year most of the time. So that's something to really take into consideration as you're making decisions for the fall. Let's see. Yes, so someone asked, good question. Thank you, Rachel. Is Stanford online courses also reputable? Yes, they are. Stanford actually has its own online high school. Many of the classes that they're teaching are taught by faculty. So the Stanford online courses definitely have a reputation. And I would say that any college online course is fine. So if you're taking an online college course, it's a course that's open to all of the students at that college. It has accreditation. that's a pretty safe bet. It's some of the schools that are, and the more reputable the school, the better. But if you're taking courses through sort of just online learning platforms that don't have a grading system, or they have a grading system, but it's not recognized by high schools, then that's a little trickier. Okay, everybody. Thank you so much for being here again today. I really appreciate the support, and I'm glad that these webinars have been helpful. I will keep note of some of these questions in the chat that I may not have answered in full just for a lack of information about what's going on with online education, but that is something that we will be tracking. We are starting to post a bulletin with data. So if you go to Fahey.associates, our website, you can see that bulletin. We're also have opened up our Facebook page, Fahey Associates. So we are making an effort to get more of this sort of data and, information out to everybody, reports and data as we move forward through this new world. So thanks to everybody. And stay tuned for the next webinar next month, and wishing you all a smooth transition into summer, and hoping that you're finding ways to stay healthy and find a little adventure each day. So thanks again for being with me, and I'll see you next time.